This is Annabelle Gauberti and you are listening to Lawfully Creative, my podcast to talk with professionals in the creative industries to hear their stories, what inspires their creation, what decisions change their careers, what relationships influence their work. Today's episode is brought to you by Crefovi, our London and Paris-based law firm focused on advising the creative industries. Subscribe to our podcast, Lawfully Creative, or catch up with our original shows on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, and many more podcast aggregators and platforms. Please do leave a review and rating about our podcast to encourage others to discover our curated content. Thank you. Hello. Hello, Lucie. Hi. Can you hear me?
Very well, yes. Can you hear me too?
Yes, actually, I need to lower the sound. Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too. This is how we meet now, so that's the best way.
That's right. Have you been attending the European Film Market, the EFM Online virtual session?
Not really. Some of my colleagues have. I haven't. It's a quiet one for my company this year, so I have so much to do anyway. But I've heard there's a lot going on. It's pretty busy, right?
Yes, well, I have been attending since Monday. It's very difficult when you also have to basically manage your clients' files, but it is what it is. So, I saw your colleagues, Anna Vincente, the head of sales, Cleo Berger, and Luc Brawley, our festival manager of your company, are actually attending. So I was wondering, I didn't have a chance to look at your slate yet, but I'm trying to catch up. I'm actually catching up on all the presentations of day 3 of the EFM. So I was Wednesday.
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot. I heard their platform is really good. This is becoming key now for online festivals to have a good setup. And I've heard Berlin is really good.
Yeah, just before you came, actually, just before we started that call, I was because you can watch some videos in replay, thank God. And so one of them was on virtual production. So that's quite interesting as well to see that now quite a lot of film sets are actually created virtually. So that's quite, I want to know more about that. So are we ready to get cracking?
We're ready? I'm ready, yes. Thanks for organizing this and thanks for...
Sure.
That's how you say it.
Yeah, no, great. You seem to have quite a really good career so far in the entertainment industry. So really well done. I had to look, of course, at your LinkedIn profile. So before we delve into this, I saw that you actually attended a master's degree in media business business law. Sorry, what's that? How is it called? C'est Master de...
C'est D2A, Droit et Administration de l'Audiovisuel in French. So it's the law department of La Sorbonne, and they have like a couple of specific master's degrees for that are like targeting film, media, covering a little bit of advertising as well, but it's mostly about film and television.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
You enjoyed that? Did you enjoy this master's degree, the courses?
Yes, that was really good because it was half of the classes were given by by film professionals, and the other half was like law teachers, basically. So that was really interesting, I think, for all of us because we came from different backgrounds, the people in the course, and that was a great way to, at the same time, learn what we needed to learn in terms of like the academics side of things. And also speaking to professionals and understanding exactly like what this business was and where we see ourselves.
So when did you complete that master's degree course in media and business law?
2012, I think. 2012.
That's when I found in Crefovi, okay. Because back then when I was myself a student in master's degree, so that was back in 1999, we didn't have such funky master's degrees. We didn't have that. I mean, having said that, though, I did do one which was dual language, Italian law, French law. I wasn't admitted in the English law, so yeah. So that's called the magister. So I actually completed it in '99 in Milan as well, in Milan in Italy for a year. But I don't think in my time we had like sort of great master's degree which was so specialized for the entertainment industry. So that's really good to know. And so is that how you set a foot into the entertainment industry for your first job at TF1? I think it was the first job you landed, right?
Yes. TF1, it was an internship. It was not a job, as in...
Okay. Well, were you doing that while you were doing the master's degree or before, after?
Yes, I think, you know what, I don't remember exactly the timeline, but I think I worked at TF1 in between, because I did a first master's degrees in film business.
Wow.
Before joining La Sorbonne for this MBA. It's kind of, I think they would call it an MBA over here.
So you have two master's
degrees that yes.
Okay.
One is more business oriented, and also it was at Paris 3, which is a university that's more focused on your essays and your research. It's not very. It's very academic. It's not very practical. While the one I did after at La Sorbonne Paris 1 in law involved, as I said, a lot of professionals also training up. And
Paris 3 is Assas.
Paris 3 is La Sorbonne Nouvelle.
La Sorbonne Nouvelle.
So it's called La Sorbonne as well. Confusing.
Okay, so basically you did that internship at TF1, which was unremunerated, between the two master's degrees.
Yes, and then after the second master's degree, I had to do an internship as well to complete the course. And I went to the sales company Memento Film International, which was at that time it was, I think, their fifth year. They had been created 5 years ago, so it was still quite a young company.
Right.
But they had just won the Oscar for the best foreign film with Asghar Farhadi, the Iranian director, for A Separation, I think it was.
Oh, yes.
But
I watched that film. That was good.
So that was a turning point for the company. So that was just, it was a bit of a coincidence, but being in a sales company at that point where they were kind of taking this turn of being like an independent company doing mostly foreign language to having this international exposure through this Oscar-winning director, that was very interesting.
For sure. So that was your first job that you landed after the master's degrees?
Yeah, that was my training at the end of my master's training.
Okay. And so, I mean, is your family or your parents, are they oriented I mean, do they work? Do they have careers in the entertainment sector? I mean, how did this come about? Because apparently from quite a young age, you were, focusing already on advising the film and audiovisual sector. So how did this come about, this passion for this type of creative content?
My parents do not work in the industry at all. It's totally different what they do.
What do they do?
I think my mom is a doctor, and my dad used to work in like professional trainings, but like for engineers, and like nothing to do with
nothing to do with entertainment. Okay.
I think I wanted to, as many young people, I guess, you dream of working in something creative. You don't want to have an office job. You want to, maybe if you're a bit arts oriented, you want to work with something that has to do with creativity and arts and artists and talents. And I knew I wanted to work with films because that was the most mainstream medium in my eyes, at least. Like, I love theater as well. I love contemporary arts and music. But it did feel like theater was something that, not theater, films actually, it was something that everybody could relate to in a way, and I knew I wanted to work in an industry that was relatable in a sense.
Yeah, and widely distributed as well, because at the end of the day, you need a tablet or even a phone to be able to watch content, film content. Well, if you're going to the theater, it's a bit different. You have to go to a place. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's interesting you're saying that a lot of young people want to work in creative endeavors, because again, I sort of compare myself at your age, when I was just straight out of university, and frankly, I was quite attracted in working in a bank. Was happy to work in investment banking. In the 80s, we were all...
maybe that's a generation thing.
Exactly. We were Generation Y, all the yuppies, So I was happy to actually work as in investment banking for like 10 years before founding Crefovi. Okay, well, no, but that's great. I'm glad to hear that, the generation after, probably born in the 80s and is more...
I mean, I guess with the 2008 crisis, bankers just got a bit of a bad rap. And
a bad rap, and also there were less opportunities, there were less opportunities. That's true. That's also when I had some sort of career change and start to think about something else more fulfilling creatively, as you were just saying. Yeah. Oh, yes, I see what you mean. So that these opportunities were no longer there for your generation in any case.
Or it didn't have maybe like such a good image as it may have a few years before, because of the crisis, it was, I guess, in the common psyche, it was like, bank messed up,
Right. Well, which was very true.
As a banker,
It was very true. I remember that when I worked at Barclays Capital in particular, I was seeing, some transactions coming my way, and I had to actually, say, let's go for it, let's do this. And I was like, I don't feel very comfortable saying yes to this from a legal standpoint, but they just force you. They just force you to say, fuck off, and just say, yes, you legal.
Oh my God.
That's another...
So much pressure.
A lot of pressure. All these guys actually, they were actually banned by the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, 10 years later. The likes of Bob Diamond, etc. They got expelled because what they did was just really crazy at Barclays Capital. And I knew it back then. I knew already that they were fucking about. But it's difficult to make a stand when you are just in-house legal with 3 or 4 years experience. But my nose was already telling me they were fucking about. Okay, so then you went to the West End film. So how did this transition happen between you? When you were at Momento, was that was probably already in London, right? Or were they in Paris? Momento.
No, they're in Paris. They're Paris-based. That just happened by chance, just like a lot of things. I had a friend working at West End Films, and she called me one day. I was just about to book tickets to go traveling to Brazil, and my friend calls me on a Wednesday morning, and she's like, "We need an in-house legal. Can you come to London and have an interview?" And had an interview a week after, and moved to London 10 days after, and that was it.
You didn't make it to Brazil, did you?
I made it to Brazil 4 years after. it was delayed a little bit,
So what does West End Film? So when did you move to London through West End Film? Which year was that?
2013, March 2013.
2013. So like 7-8 years ago. So then what do they specialize in, West End Films?
So it's a sales agency as well for films. So film sales, sometimes people are not very familiar with. It's like exportation, but for films, right? So it's basically, we are the middleman between the producer and the local distributor. Okay. It's business to business. We attend markets, and we market the films, as in we present them to distributors with marketing materials, sales posters, sales sheets.
So you are sales agents?
Yes, exactly.
Working on behalf of the producers?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And is that still something that you are doing right now at with your team, of course, at Dogwoof, or were you talking specifically about the West End Films job description here just now?
That's also what I do at Dogwoof, but Dogwoof is a more vertically integrated company. Dogwoof does only documentary films, but Dogwoof also is involved in finance and production and UK distribution. So when I was at West End, at the time, at least, the company was being strictly a sales agent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So did you attend some of the festivals and sales markets that you just mentioned while being there at West End?
These are absolutely keys for our business. So obviously, depending on which films you are selling, some markets are going to be more important than others. Cannes remains the one for at least for films that are aiming at having a prestigious festival life, so winning awards, being in Cannes or anywhere else, obviously like what we call the A-list festival circuits. There is a couple of festivals in North America that are very important, so Toronto and Sundance.
Oh, really?
Berlin, obviously.
Your team used to go to Sundance as well?
Yeah, Sundance is the key festival if you are selling rights in the US as well.
Wow. Really? Is it more important than the American film market, which is in November every year in Santa Monica?
I'm kind of the post AFM generation, I think. It's been since 9 years now that I work in the film business. Every year, everyone is saying, "Oh, maybe it's the last AFM. Maybe it's the last AFM." It's been less and less important. Maybe it was. Maybe I might be exaggerating a bit. Maybe it was still 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. But the AFM was mostly a financing market, like a market made to pre-sell film rights to finance the films. And this is happening, as you know, it's happening less and less. Distributors don't have the cash flow for this. They don't really have to do this because they can just wait for the films to be ready and see the final product. So AFM is also, it's not a festival. So there's no red carpet.
But I didn't know that Sundance was the market. I didn't know Sundance was the market. I thought it was mostly only a festival, Sundance.
It's quite it's a festival. It's not a marketplace per se, there's nothing like the Marché du Film, for instance. But like you see like huge deals coming out of Sundance in the last like 4 or 5 years. And this is the market that the global players have kind of targeted to make their big splashes. I think when Amazon bought Birth of a Nation, which was maybe 5 years ago, which was their first big buy, when everyone was like, okay, Amazon Studio is now on the field and is going to be the first competitor to Netflix. That was at Sundance.
Which title was that again? of a Nation? Birth of
a Nation, yeah I think it was at Sundance. I would need to check, but I'm pretty sure it was a Sundance title.
How interesting. So what about Telluride? Is that on the agenda or not at all? It's too hard.
It is. It's not on the key agenda, but it's on the agenda because the programmers are really good. It's always going to be quality films, like quality titles. The thing with Telluride is like it's strictly a festival. It's not a marketplace, and they have this thing where they announced like very shortly before the beginning of the festival. That's their thing. So you can't really like gear up for Telluride because until a few days before Telluride, you don't know what's in Telluride. So it's a bit hard to position yourself, and because it's also not very easy to attend. It's in the middle of the summer, so yeah.
I think like September. Right. Okay. So starting the annual year with in Utah with Sundance, as you were saying, in Lake City, Park City, I can't remember. Then moving on to Cannes. What about Berlin? Surely the EFM must be on the calendar. In
yes, no? It is. It's on the calendar for European buyers. Okay. Then, in terms of the festival selection, it's very author-driven, foreign language. So it really depends what's your market. For some companies, this is their bread and butter, but for some other companies, it's just if you focus on like English language films with A-list cast, Berlin is not going to be like your key event of the year.
Right. And then I suppose Cannes. Did you go to Cannes with Western films and Dogwoof, or?
Yes. Cannes obviously is like the major festival if you're doing independent films, like independent in like the broad sense of independent. So anything that's not a studio production, I would call independent.
Did you watch the series 10%? I Call My Agent.
I love it.
The scenes in Cannes were quite funny. Although to be honest, so rocambolesque. I mean, the stories are like out of this world. This agent played by Margot Motin, I think. The main agent.
Camille Cotin, yes.
Camille Cotin, sorry. I mean, she's just so wild.
But it's not totally. I actually, my family watched it in France, and I like to tell them, like, this is a little bit close to what I do, except that we're not as close to talents and stars, but
Right.
you get a little more what my business is about.
Yeah, it was really good.
I love the episode in Cannes, actually, with what's her name?
Yes. Voilà.
I think
she's got a problem with her dress because she just falls from her. And she's got this guy who's following her around because she's wearing like a 10 million euros necklace or something from Chopin. All right.
Yeah. By a guy. Yeah, it's brilliantly written, this series.
Yes, for sure. So, what is that? How would you describe your day-to-day activity at Dogwoof, which, as you said, is more vertically integrated through production, world sales, and UK distribution? How, as a business affair and legal affairs manager.
It's a lot of contracts.
Good, very good.
It's a lot of drafting and reviewing and negotiating licenses, mostly licenses and everything that goes with it. So the offers, all finance-related agreements. So of course, if you're co-financing a film, you're gonna have to do the collection account management agreement. You're gonna have to work maybe on loan agreements if you have a lender, maybe completion guarantees. Everything that goes with the financing of a film. And of course, there's the other side of the other legal side, which is anything that's copyright related and chain of titles, so talents agreements, producers agreements, release forms, music licenses, all of this.
Do you also deal with?
It's a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of coordination with the team as well. Because, as I said, sales agents with the middleman, so you need to be on top of what's going on.
Oh, I lost you there. Hello.
Okay. Yes.
You can.
There was a bit of a. It's fine now.
I lost you when you were saying it's a lot of contracts, etc., etc. I just wanted to know: do you also deal with the insurance side of things, since you are also doing production?
A little bit. I mean, we work with the main producers for production insurance and errors and omissions insurances, but that's not a big part of what we do. Okay. We just need to make sure all our films are covered.
Well. Okay, but on this point of insurance, apparently at the moment with COVID, it's getting more and more difficult for productions to get insurance. Is that something you confirm?
Yes, I've heard it from many other people that it's harder to get an insurance, it's harder to get a loan, it's harder to get completion guarantee, it's harder to get a bond, like everything. All your backups basically are harder to secure. So it's a really good time to be making animation. So that's the big joke going around. Like we should all be doing animation because it's just like people in a room and you can be 2 meters apart and you don't need to go outside or don't even need to wear a mask. It's just you and your computer. And for us, as far as documentary goes, it's a good time to make documentaries based on stock footage or archives or focus on the what's happening in the edit room, basically. Yeah, it's really hard to be.
Well, you've got to adapt, I guess. Well, this is also where this virtual production thing is coming into play. I mean, this is going to be, instead of having everyone, staying in a green room and shooting like that, then if you can do everything through virtual production, with even like the actors actually doing the acting bit from their own house, so that they are COVID protected, would be amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
How would you describe one of your regular day? I mean, now, not pre-COVID, but now. How would you describe one of your regular day as the head of business and legal affairs at Dogwoof? What time do you finish?
It's office hours. I mean, office hours have been a little bit blurred with COVID because we're working from home. So there is a temptation to drag a bit later in the day and get more things done with the US. That's the main thing that dictates my day. It's the time zone. So in the morning, I will focus on Asia and Europe, and in the afternoon, I will focus on the US.
Right.
It's a lot of emails. and it's making like some free time, not free time, it's some no emails time to focus on the paperwork and the agreements and the licenses. So that's kind of the balance. A lot of emails with our distributors around the world, our producers, a lot of emails with the team as well.
Can you name some distributors for us?
Sorry?
Would you be able to name some of his distributors that you usually...
Yes, sure. So you're going to have... The good thing with documentaries is it's a format that is getting a lot of traction right now. And so we will be dealing at the same time with like global players like Netflix, Amazon, the American broadcasters, Showtime, HBO, and so on and so forth. And you also have distributors like more locally. So, of course, broadcasters in Europe. So the Arte ZDF group, all the public television channels in Scandinavia, for instance, they love documentaries. In Eastern Europe as well, Spain as well. Then you have the pay television channels like Sky in the UK and in Germany. And then you have the all rights distributors who will take our documentaries on the big screen. So, I mean, there's many of them, but you will have... Yes, and that's what I love. One of the things I love about this job is that you get to work with such a wide range of people.
Yeah, and as
you're going to be in the same day dealing with like... Yes, on the continent, and also the size of the companies, and that's very interesting to be at the same time working with like very small independent distributors, maybe in Poland or in Japan, and also big studios in Los Angeles.
Right, and there's the buzz going around the EFM at the moment, online, of course, as everything is virtual, that there is actually a content shortage, so that there is not enough content, especially European content, that is needed, especially for these new streamers, the likes of HBO, Paramount, Disney. They need that European content to be able to show the legal, the statutory 10%, or I think it's a bit more European content that needs to be shown on these platforms if they want to be able to basically distribute the streaming services in Europe. Would you agree that there is indeed a shortage of content, in particular European content? Which is good for
yes,
you.
I think, and I've read about it as well. And there is this new law in France, like the SMA, where even if you're like a global player, if you want to be able to broadcast in Europe, you're going to have to broadcast a certain percentage of European content.
That's not very new. It's been going on for a while. It's l'exception culturelle.
Yes, l'exception culturelle has been going on, but the directive SMA is very recent, has been recently confirmed. The fact that
directive, so it's at the EU level for the 27 member states. It's not only France anymore.
Yes.
Wow.
But the French one is even more specific, obviously, because we always have to be more specific.
Tell me about it. Right. Directive SMA. How interesting. Okay, so it's been basically taking that concept and then implementing it in the 26 other member states of the EU. Yeah, so you bet they do need a lot of European content, otherwise they just can't play their services there.
Yeah, but that's good for what we call catalog films, like films that may have come out like maybe a few years ago, maybe not 20 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and haven't sold everywhere. This is kind of their time now, because they're ready, they're oven ready, and they're available to sell.
And have you seen a slowdown in the productions which have been made since, let's say, mid 2019? One of the other reasons for the shortage of content is because quite a lot of films have not been able to go in production because of COVID, because of the health and safety issues, because of insurance issues, the lack of financing, la di da di da. So, professionals predict that there will be a bit dearth of content.
There's been like 2 slowdowns. There's been the slowdown of production because we can't travel, we can't we can't do anything except staying home. So obviously this has slowed down some production. I'm hearing that in France it's picking up a lot because now it has been the regulations are out as to how many people need to get a test every day before coming on a shoot, and they need to wear a mask. The crew needs to wear a mask and so on. So I'm hearing that there's a lot of film and television shootings going on in France now, and I'm assuming elsewhere as well. The other slowdown that happened last year was the films that were ready, like the author-driven films that were ready, that were not pushed into the festival circuits because the festivals were not physical. And for instance, all the films that I planned to premiere in Cannes in 2020, and they delayed because they wanted, Cannes was cancelled, and you want a red carpet, you want some press, you want to have
some crazy directors. They just want a theatrical release at all costs. So, for example, the Wes Anderson film, The French Dispatch, has been postponed to 2022. Yeah. It's been crazy like that. I mean, hello, lots of films like from major studios have been postponed. I think this is such a bad reflection on a lack of adaptation to what's happening at that moment.
It's very frustrating for the audience. I understand where they come from as directors, because you really don't want to devaluate your film, and I think the fear of taking your film out at a moment where it's going to be anyway a slow moment, like a kind of a down moment for the market. What will it mean for your next film? We know that for a filmmaker, how he's going to make his next film depends on how his current film is going to be welcomed on the market. So I'm not too worried for Wes Anderson in particular, but for other directors, I can understand that they need to push their titles for the best and biggest exposure, because otherwise they're not going to raise as much money for the next film. That's how it goes.
Yeah, but I think the paradigm has changed. We have no idea when theaters are going to open again. And frankly, I think that, 50% of regular film goers before pandemic are not going to return to cinemas anytime soon. I went to see La Daronne, the French with which was fun actually. Sorry?
Isn't it Isabelle Huppert? I'm not sure.
Merci. Isabelle Huppert in Paris, just in I think in November 2020, when films like theaters were reopened again. I wasn't feeling comfortable because the people around me, they all want to be in the center, they were just surrounding me. The public, members of the public were surrounding me. The 2 meters distance wasn't respected. So I was wearing my mask during the whole screening, which wasn't fun. And as I said, I wasn't feeling comfortable because I was surrounded by all these people who wanted to be at the same place because we all wanted to be in the center. So I don't think that lots of people are going to return to the cinema anytime soon, especially if they feel very vulnerable, etc. So I don't know. I think there's still quite a lot of catching up from the big, the big names and the big studios. So do you have any perhaps examples of titles that you would like to share with us that Dogwoof has dealt with, and give us an example of what it has been doing in relation to that particular title?
Sure. Well, I would have many, but let me think of something recent, maybe. I mean, there's a film that we have produced and financed, and that we showed in Sundance in January this year. Mm-hmm. That is about Valerie Taylor, who's been diving. She's a woman. She's in her 80s now, in her 70s now, and she's been diving with sharks since she was in her 20s. She spent her life diving with sharks, and she was
which part of the world?
In Australia. She's Australian.
White sharks.
And yeah, exactly. And she's filming with her husband. She has like this fascinating footage, like underwater footage from the 70s and the 80s that she's been filming with her husband. And she started as a shark, as a hunter, not a hunter, but like I guess we call it shark hunter. Right. And she to become a conservationist and a champion for the environment and the protection of sharks. And she's still diving today. And so we have this beautiful, beautiful film about her, with, of course, great access to her life and her personal archives that we've been screening at Sundance that got like amazing reviews. And on the back of this Sundance screening was acquired by National Geographic Worldwide, which was like obviously absolutely fantastic for the film and for herself, for Valerie, and to know that her story is going to be told and shared at such a huge scale. That is the kind of great kind of adventure you go through, because you board a film. We boarded this film 2 years ago, and you have a team. You have to set up a team. We work with the producers in Australia. It's quite a long distance. It's not always very easy and stuff like this. And to have this kind of payoff of the film going to such a big international streamer and global player with the prestige of the National Geographic brand, that was great. Great way to start the year.
Well done. And so I suppose that, so when you say streamer, it's if I remember well, the National Geographic does have a TV channel, or maybe several actually.
So initially it's a pay TV channel that is broadcasted in most of the Western countries, but they're also part of the Disney Plus bundle. So it's Disney Plus now. Yeah.
So it's going to be on Disney Plus. Oh, that's really awesome. Well done. And so on that, yeah, so it was like you were involved at the whole stages of a supply chain. Yeah, that's great. Yes. So moving on slightly from away from the film industry for a second, you actually contacted me when I sent out an email. I mean, after I sent out an email about cancel culture, which was one of the updates I sent. I think it was end of last year, because it was becoming quite relevant in Europe. Of course, we're always 1 year late compared to the US people. But do you want to expand on the feedback that you had about this particular piece? Okay, just to give you some background though, I had the idea of drafting a piece about cancel culture, la culture de l'annulation, so cancellation. Further to listening to an excellent podcast from Histoire d'Amérique, which is a French podcast about American stories, which had been actually produced and edited by Aude Chalumeau. So she's like a new kid on the block in the French journalist scene. And so the background material of this story about cancel culture was actually the book released by the wonderful Bret Easton Ellis, which is White, where he was actually describing all these issues with cancel culture. Yeah. So that's the background. So what would you like to share with us, your constructive feedback about this piece? I'm ready. You can go. No, I'm joking. That's fine. I'm cool. I'm sure.
I mean, that was just fantastic. This newsletter first that you send is always like such a resourceful newsletter to read. It's like always very, very interesting, and thank you for that. And I thought this one in particular was really interesting because you were also going back to the history, in a sense, of cancel culture and how it comes from the 90s and what we would call like culture wars. And you were also like different approaches of what free speech entails from a legal point of view in the US and in the UK and in France. And the comparison is very, very, I think, insightful and enlightening right now, because obviously this thing of cancel culture, it feels at least that it's something that is coming from the other side of the Atlantic, and it's coming our way.
Yeah.
But it's not something that was born in Europe, or not under this form at least.
Correct.
Obviously, there's some precedent. I think the one point where I wanted to discuss with you is this question of like the consequence it has in our creative industries in terms of what we would call, I think, diversity, which is the maybe the expectation that now we're going to be more, we as in the business people in the creative industry, we're going to be more looking at talents from a more diverse background and maybe more women as well. Yeah. And whether that is cancelling in a way to some white male talents or what is kind of the spirit of this, and if it can be damageful or not. Yeah. I think that's something we deal with every day as a production company and as a distributor. Okay. Because we are here to provide content to distributors, and distributors provide content to the audience, and the audience are the reflection of the society, and cancel culture is a big part of our society right now. It's a question that something we debate quite a lot in my company and with also industry friends and so on. I think it's important to keep in mind that the creative industry as it is right now isn't really far from being a fair reflection of our society in terms of diversity. So there's still a long way to go, and maybe this long way to go needs a little push. But that's my personal opinion. That may feel frustrating to some, but I don't think you can really. I don't see how you could argue that this isn't in the sake of the greater good.
Sure, I agree with you. I think the reason why I really delved into this subject, in addition to listening to that wonderful podcast, Histoire d'Amérique on white, the book from Bret Easton Ellis, it was actually a fascinating subject. And it's true that with the Me Too, it gives also some of the context to all these Me Too movements, or Balance ton port, I think it's called, which is not very nice. But I mean, it's just not as elegant as Me Too or Black Lives Matters. But it gives some context as to what's going on here. Just for the sake of completeness, the point I made about when I at the bottom, like on the third party of his article I wrote about cancel culture, where I actually illustrated the white male point of view, which is that they feel a bit left out because now it's going to be the gay person or the female person or the Latino or the black or whatever who is going to be prioritized as opposed to them, heterosexual white males. This is because it was actually a point which was apparently discussed at length in the book White, and it's also mentioned in the podcast. So I thought it would be interesting to give the perspective from both angles. But I agree with you that in Europe, in particular, and I'm sure in other continents like Africa or Asia, we still a really long way to go before the patriarchy is down and on its knees. There's still a lot of work to do. Having said that, though, I mean, maybe because I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s and the UP at heart, so to speak. No, I'm joking. But maybe, I mean, for me, it's the best project that wins. It's the best. I don't really care whether it's been done by a woman or a man or a person of color, green, red or whatever. I don't care. I want the content to be engaging, and to touch me or to be of use to me as so that is, I think this when you were saying a push needs to be given. Yes, but then at the end of the day, it's who gives the best content to the masses, to the public, who is going to win. So, I mean, am I wrong in thinking this, or because there are some parameters that I am not aware of? But for me, it's always been my point of view. If you give some good content to your audience, they really don't give a fuck about whether you're a woman or a man or gay or straight or whatever. They just want to have your great content. End of the story.
Obviously, and that's always kind of the conclusion when we discuss it, whether like with industry people, it's like obviously at the end of the day, talent speaks more than anything.
Yeah,
but there's one thing that we need to keep in mind is that we know as the middleman and middlewoman and as the kind of behind the scene business of the film industry and of the creative industries, that for talent to at least have access to exposure, there's so many steps before that, and all those steps are hit and stained in a way by unconscious bias, and this is where I think the push needs to be given. We need to also question ourselves as to
a level playing field at the beginning, especially. Yeah, okay, no, that's fair.
And check in with ourselves if we are giving the same opportunities as far as our business reaches to white people as non-white people, to male talents as female talents. And maybe we're going to have to look a little bit further to find more diversity, but maybe that's also part of our role, because maybe there are stories there that are just as good or even better, and also they're going to be fresher and newer. We just haven't been reaching out further enough to get them.
But actually, that segues very nicely into my last question for this podcast, which is, what are the trends that you are seeing in film distribution and consumption for the next 5 to 10 years, especially now with COVID, which is just forcing the film industry and the studios to stop the sort of theatrical release, dictatorship, so to speak. And also, don't you think, since you were saying there needs to be more of a level playing field so that everybody can have access to, filmmaking, don't you think that actually the fact that everybody now, for example, for €89 can attend the EFM, everybody can now do, what's it called again? Virtual production online. So it's probably cheaper than having you have to have massive sets and location. That levels the playing field because it's cheaper, right? It's getting cheaper and more. You just need a good MacBook Pro, and you could even film with your iPhones, like Sean Baker did for his film Tangerine. And that's how he rose to the. So what are the trends that you are seeing in terms of film distribution and also consumption? So the end consumers perspective in the next 5 to 10 years with the push from COVID?
Yes, I mean, COVID definitely accelerated so much, so many things in the way we consume films and in the stories.
You know what?
Great! Well.
I'm like, great, because you guys were so behind compared to the music industry. I mean, hello, the shift that happened in the music industry like 10 years ago, and the films were like, oh no, theatrical release this, theatrical release that. I was like, fuck that. Everybody's been parroting all the films on Time for Popcorn. I think I lost you. Hello? Are you here?
The music industry is still, it looks like the music industry is still, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
I just wanted to say the music industry, they seem to be going through a bit of self-introspection as well right now, no? Because I'm reading a lot about how songwriters are asking for more recognition and more revenues as well coming from the streamers and so on. So it's not, they haven't found their final destination yet. It's still a figuring out process, yeah.
Would you agree that the push towards digital was forced by piracy like 10 years ago, the likes of Napsters and Pirate Bay? Well, in the film industry, I think there was an enormous reluctance from many dinosaurs to move on, but now no longer with COVID. I just can't avoid it anymore.
Honestly, I do have faith in the creativity of some distributors and exhibitors, and I'm really curious to see what everything is going to be different. Nothing will ever be the same, that's for sure. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't tell how it. As far as like distribution is concerned, I'm not 100% certain it's going to go this way or that way. I'm really curious, actually. I do believe in the resilience of distribution.
Sorry.
I believe in the resilience of the distribution business.
Of course. I mean, be it on streamers or in theatricals or whatever, we will still need some content. We will still need some distribution. But what is your feeling more specifically about what's going to happen now? For example, once COVID it's never going to go away. I think every every season when it's very cold, it's going to come back like the flu. But do you think that when it's possible to move about and go back to theaters, do you think that we're going to have that question of, we can't have day and date release again? Or do you think that this is going to be passé, so to speak?
Oh, it really depends on the countries. I think in France, they're going to keep on trying to protect the windows for a while and for longer than anywhere else. In the UK, it's already been shortened. In the US, let's see if the HBO Max schedule for 2021 expands further than 2021, but it's looking very likely. So this is all going to be reshuffled, and it's, as far as theaters are concerned, cinema theaters, I'm expecting it to become something very event-based, and it's not going to be theatrical runs, playing one film 5 times a day. It's going to be about having a meal at the same time, or having a live show before or after, or winning a ticket. It's going to be more bespoke for people to consume films in theaters, at least in the UK, I think, probably in the US as well. And in terms
there's
of
a thing which does that quite well in the UK, if I may interject here. It's, I think, the electric.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I think this is because I think it's also the only way for them to actually make money, because just making money for a cinema just out of selling tickets is not enough. So they need to build up more of an event, something more like exciting. More exciting. I feel bad saying this, but like more special, more of a one-off feeling around the film itself, which again is super exciting as well. There's a lot of creative things to be done around.
I agree, but even in this EFM, there's so much creativity going on. Even the way, the events are staged, the possibilities to replay. I think that's really great. For me, for the EFM, there are still too many events which are closed, where like you have to have an invitation and stuff like that. And I think in this era, the aquarium era, I don't think that's fair. Everybody, because you can't say there's not enough room, there's not enough places in the room. You can't say that anymore, right? It's because obviously there's no room.
Exactly.
So there's no limit to whoever can attend. So as long as you are an attendee and a participant in the EFM, you should be able to attend all sessions. But still, I found that some of them were a bit too secretive for me because I couldn't attend them. But that's okay. So basically, you are staying very, very positive. You think creativity is definitely going to win, and resilience on the distribution side. What about the consumption and consumers? What trends do you see in terms of taste, in terms of how they want to consume? I think I might have lost you again. Hello. Of course.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll keep the camera off for now, just to save a bit of bandwidth.
Okay.
In terms of consumption, you mean for the content or the way films are going to be consumed?
Both.
It's a big question mark, but it does look like we are really taking the digital journey even faster than expected.
Good.
And there's some great in there as well when you see what Apple is doing, Disney Plus is doing, and Netflix have been in the pandemics, all these special features where you can stream them at home at the same time as your friends, so it feels like you're watching together, and you can send text around them. This is a way to recreate some feeling of being social around watching a film. And in terms of content,
sorry, who does this?
Netflix, and I think Disney Plus as well have this feature. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And content. I'm really hoping, and I'm starting to see a bit in the projects I see in development and coming up in production, some reflection of this diversity topic that we covered already, and this question of having more diverse voices. I feel there is a big need of, not a need, but a thirst from the audiences to hear more diverse experiences and to have something that changes a bit from the usual storyline that we know about a broken man that's going to achieve great things and women are in the background, and we've heard this story 25 times, and which is also a way to question the whole question of genres in films, which has been maybe a little bit tried in the last maybe 10 years. And I think it's really good if we can walk away from the strict genres of the action film and the romantic comedy, the 90 minutes feature. I think the formats as well are being revisited, and I think it's going to be very, very exciting, actually.
Okay, well, that sounds really awesome. That sounds awesome. And I'm glad that you have such a positive outlook on the future. I feel excited about that. Lucie, I know you are tied up in another meeting at 5. So thank you ever so much. I'll be back in touch with you soon once I've edited this, okay? And thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a good weekend.
Yes, likewise. Bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for listening to our podcast Lawfully Creative, produced by Crefovi Studios. Subscribe to our podcast or catch up with our original shows on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, and many more podcast aggregators and platforms.
Please leave a review and rating about our podcast to encourage others to discover our creative content. Thank you.